Hello, everyone. This is Tristan Evans from Geek Vibes Nation, and I have the honor and the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Rasheed Newson today. He is the co-showrunner and co-executive producer of BelAir. He is also the author of the upcoming novel, My Government Means to Kill Me, which will be released from Flatiron Books in August. Rasheed, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making time to speak with us. We are all so excited over here at Geek Vibes Nations. We love BelAir. To steal an expression from my grandmother, y'all put y'all's feet in BelAir season one. Like I even put in my notes, I was like, it's unnerving how good this show is. Like everything from like the aesthetics to like the actors to like the way you use, like, I mean, I feel like each of these characters has the foundations of the originals, but also you make them something new as well, and you updated them for 2022. Like, it's just, I even wrote in, I'm working on a BelAir season one review, and I was like, I feel like this is like an outline to other shows, like how to successfully reimagine a show. Like, you guys did such a good job, but we'll get into that. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, because you've worked on so many amazing shows. You've worked on The Chi, Army Wives, Narcos, The 100. I want to ask you if you could share a little bit with us about how you broke into writing for television and producing and show running.
I came out to LA after college, so this is like 20 years ago, and I just wanted to be in the business. I loved writing. I think at the time I thought I'd be a feature writer, but the first jobs I got were in television. I was something called a writer's PA or a night PA for a sitcom on UPN. So my job at night when they were done with the comedy script was to drive all around town and take copies of the script and drop it off at the actors' houses, the studios' houses. All of this has been replaced by PDFs and email, but that was my first job. And that's how I learned how to drive around LA. I was the assistant to the showrunner on the Bernie Mac show. So TV is sort of where I found my footing. I found my writing partner, and then we started writing together. And our first show was Lie to Me in 2008. But I had been here 6 or 7 years before that opportunity came along. I did not know it was going to take so long. I thought at the time, it always felt like it was right around the corner. And I think that kept me going when I was young.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, as I was saying earlier, BelAir is such an amazing show. Like Coco Jones, her portrayal of Hilary, to me is just like the moment she got on screen, I was like, yes, that is Hilary Banks in 2022. And so kind of like what I was saying earlier, I feel like with all of the characters, it's the perfect marriage of like some familiar traits from the original characters, but also something new. So you're able to draw in both old fans, but also draw in a new crowd. What was that process like in the writer's room, or when you guys were kind of building these new incarnations of the Banks family?
The thing we kind of kept encouraging everyone in the writer's room to do was to take big swings. You were going to, Hilary was going to be sort of a fashionista. She was going to be larger than life. But beyond that, it was like, okay, where do you want to take her? And what world could she get us into that would be interesting on its own? So generally, we were trying not to be too timid, because our feeling was if we had sort of stayed too close to what was done in the original, we would lose by comparison. You weren't going to beat them at what they gave everybody. So we had to deliver something new. I know before the show came out, there was a lot of worries, a lot of skepticism about whether or not this was going to work. And people were sort of saying, oh my goodness, I hope they don't destroy my childhood. I hope they don't, tarnish this thing that I hold precious. I wasn't so worried about that because everybody on the show held it precious as well. We all grew up watching this show and loving this show. So we tried to trust our own instincts. If we felt it was entertaining and fun, we hope the audience would agree.
Absolutely. And you guys, again, nailed it. What I really love is with Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv, and this isn't to say that they weren't their own characters in the original, but I feel like y'all really took time to expand them in this incarnation. And really, they're more than just there to discipline the kids and things like that. They're their own fully realized characters. They have their own goals, ambitions. But on the field, we see he has his own villains. Like, what went into that decision to make the parental figures fully realized characters?
Well, we realized we were going to have essentially two different audiences. One would be a younger audience that maybe seen a few episodes of Fresh Prince, but may not have seen them all, you know. And then we had the hardcore audience that had seen every episode and grew up with the show. That audience is in their Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv's age now. And so this could not just be a show about the love lives of 16-year-olds. There was going to have to be something happening between the adults. And we thought it was important that the adults have storylines that weren't just about what are we going to do with these crazy kids. So that's how that sort of got fleshed out. And our hope was, again, that older audiences would go with it and that younger audiences would also kind of find it interesting or at least hang in there while we were doing adult stuff before we got back to the teenagers.
Great. So another thing I want to ask you about is like everything from like the fashion to the art to the music, like it really helps immerse you in this world of BelAir. So what was that process like, just kind of creating the aesthetic of the 2022 BelAir?
Well, we got a lot of that from director Morgan Cooper's short film. So in terms of just the lighting and his visual language, that was something we could sort of, everybody looked at it and we were all on the same page. I also think, I love the art. I love the clothes. I love the music. All of that, as much as it seems sort of natural and spontaneous, all of that, you've got to start very early. There are a lot of meetings. You've got to clear rights. You've got to get people to sign off. I think I've been on a lot of shows where people have ideas to do big things in those areas. They don't start soon enough. So well early in our pre-production process, we were sort of hammering out, who wrote this song, what pieces of art do we want, and how do we get all that there? I know it's not probably the sexiest thing to say, but what you're watching is the triumph of really good administrative skills. That's how we got it to look that good.
Well, it is amazing. It looks very good. So great job, great work. I'm sure a lot of really talented people went into creating all of that. What was the casting process like? So it's like going back to what I said about Coco Jones, like she just embodies that character so well. And even Ollie, who plays Carlton, like it's so funny, like I follow him on Twitter and he's just so cool on Twitter. But sometimes I remind myself, I'm like, Carlton wouldn't tweet that. But I'm like, no, Ollie's just an amazing actor. That's why I can't get Carlton out of my head. Like they're different people. Ollie's the real guy. But like, what was that casting process? I feel like everybody just embodies their character so well.
That probably was the part of this whole thing where I was the most scared. Like that was some sleepless nights because you have got to recreate this iconic family, find someone to play this role that was, made famous by Will Smith. And, you don't have a lot of time. We're doing it during a pandemic. We're doing it over Zoom. So there was a lot of worry about how do we get this right and can we get this right? Coco comes in and that is somebody who you see that audition and you're just so happy and relieved because everybody, oh, okay, that's it. That was a pretty clear cut one. Ollie's interesting. Ollie's audition was great. The question is, are we going there with this character? Are we going to play it in that tenor? Now, I loved it. Morgan loved it. TJ loved it. And it clearly carried the day. Some of the auditions, everybody kind of sees it all at once. Others, you realize you've got to have a deeper conversation about the character. And are we going to live on this interpretation? I'm glad we chose to. Ollie's great.
Yes. All of them are amazing. So with this being a reimagining, kind of a somewhat darker reimagining, and I don't know if you can answer this, but was there a limit in going forward? Is there a limit for you all as far as like, okay, we're not going to go this dark? Like, is there a line that you draw? Because over at Geek Vibes Nation, I don't know how you're going to react to this. I was telling everybody, I was like, Aunt Viv and Jeffrey are having an affair. And they were like, what? They were like, you just like mess. I was like, no, but if it's a dark, gritty reimagining, you have to throw that in there. But seriously though, is there kind of a line that you guys have drawn? Like, you know what, we're not going to cross that line.
Well, we want to stay grounded. And the problem I think sometimes when you go too big or too messy is realistically people would not come back from that. If, for example, Will saw some gruesome murder, we would need a whole season to unpack that. As it was, he was arrested, and that was traumatizing for him. And it took a couple episodes for him to shake that. So we tried to look for things that we thought were grounded, but we're trying not to do something that you have to later ignore the real life ramifications of what you've introduced. I mean, if there was an affair between Jeffrey and Viv, there's going to be a divorce. You're not it's really hard to stitch the family back together from that.
Right. So I want to ask about you, and because you and TJ have been writing partners for a long time.
Yes.
And then you also have the creator, Morgan Cooper. Like, what was that working relationship like? You and TJ having to integrate someone else into your working relationship to kind of help them realize their vision?
Well, we had done that sort of job before. I mean, before we were the showrunners on this show, we were what they call like the number twos on other shows, where you are helping the showrunner and you're sort of the first point person to do that. This was a little flip because now we're the showrunners and we've got, final say, as it were. But even that it's sort of funny. It's not something, I learned you don't throw that around. You certainly don't want a staff of people who are doing something just because you say so. That's going to get old real quick. Morgan was fun to work with. He came with a very clear vision. That helps. That cannot be, I can't stress enough how valuable that is. A lot of first-year shows don't have it. And he really had thought of every aspect of this. I mean, just going back to music, when I got to the writer's room, Morgan had a playlist for every character.
I love it.
He had really steeped himself in this world. And so it was a question of how to tell the story, how to turn over the cards. And that was another thing I loved about this show. When we got there, there's no end to the stories we could tell, we can tell. It's, okay, how do we want to do this? Where do we want to put the emphasis? And then again, in a way that is not normally talked about and people, I think, overlook, TJ and I brought a lot of administrative experience that just says, oh, you want those songs, or you want that location. Here's how we can do that. So much of television, especially once you get past the pilot, is like this jigsaw puzzle. You have 9 days to shoot it. You have only so much money. You have only so many days you can go on location, and your script comes in and they very quickly tell you, you need to cut $500,000 out of this, or you need to get 2 more days just back on stage. And we've got to address those very real production concerns without you at home feeling like we cheaped out on the episode, without you feeling like, they ain't been nowhere. Or, they promised me something and then we didn't get to actually see what they promised. So that's, I think, taken a lot of experience. And I'm very proud that we were able to figure out all that out during the pandemic.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. So that BelAir season finale. Oh my God. You left so many characters and some interesting situations, left us really excited for season 2. So it's probably limited, but what can you tell us about season 2, or about the character arcs moving forward?
Well, season 2, our goal, of course, would be to try to reunify the family. They've sort of been shattered. Will has walked out. We try to be a grounded show, and we're trying to play the reality of this. Will feels he has been betrayed and lied to by the 3 adults he trusted. I don't think he trusts a lot of people very easily. I think they've got a lot of work to do in season 2 to rebuild that relationship. Conversely, I think Carlton sort of cemented his bond to Will in that finale. In the end, Carlton defies his father, is bringing him into his dad's office, gets the report, brings it to Will and says, you've got to read this. And even when Will goes out the door, he slips some money in his pocket. He is looking after his cousin in a way that, when you think about how he got there, I think his first words to Will are essentially, "Why are you wearing my clothes?" And then it's like, and in the end, it's like, "Take my money." So I think now that we've got them bonded, we can have a lot of fun with Carlton, Will, and Jazz. So I think that'll be fun. And I think the Jazz Hilary romance is everybody's loving it. We're loving it.
Yes.
People are so fixated on the height difference. I think the real thing here and I think it'll come up in season 2, is just the difference in lifestyles and expectations. I mean, you got to think, Hilary's had boyfriends who just say, "Get on my private plane and let's go to Dubai." Jazz can't do that. And what does it feel like? Okay, there's sort of every relationship has that. There's that novelty of new love, and you're so excited and happy. What happens when they reach their cruising altitude? So there's a lot to explore there between these people who've got great chemistry, but come from vastly different worlds.
Absolutely. And speaking of Jazz and Hilary, because their relationship in the original was very much like he was in love with her, she was annoyed with him. What led to the decision to make it like a mutual attraction this time around?
Well, this is, a lot of television is just responding to what the actors give you and saying, "Oh, well, this is working." So I'll give you 2 examples, but with Jazz and Hilary, here's one. The scene where they meet in the record store, I thought that Jazz would be flirting with her, and she really wouldn't necessarily be feeling it. But Coco played it like, "I'm here for it." And suddenly there's this great chemistry, and you're watching the scene, and you're going, "Well, you can't put a lid on this." If that's how they're playing it, let's lean into that. And it did change the trajectory of the story, because it just suddenly there was sparks in a way that was really fun and attractive. That's gold for us. So we're not going to slow that down. Let's go. The other version is we were on set, and during a break, Jabbar just went over. We have a piano on set, and he started playing the piano. I was like, "You play the piano?" He's like, "Yeah. Oh yeah, I learned." And okay. We went back to whatever script was on our desk that day. It was like, and Will sits down and plays the piano. Like, you're just putting that in the show. That happens in big and small ways all the time. If you see a spark, or you see something, you see an actor's got a gift for comedy, or you see something they can do, you run towards it.
Awesome. So with Ashley, which I'm really interested to see how Ashley develops going forward. What went into the decision to have this incarnation of Ashley sort of questioning her sexual identity?
Personally, I felt it had to be done. I'm a gay man. I wanted somebody who was in this family to be LGBTQ. I liked that it was Ashley because she is so young. I think, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I just think to differentiate our stories from a lot of stories, oftentimes, if you have a young person who's coming to terms with their sexuality, they are a teenager, they are sexually interested in another person, and that's what they're exploring. I think most people in the LGBTQ community would say that their sexual identity began to dawn on them before they were sexually interested in anyone. It's not always about, I want to sleep with somebody. It can be the way you want to dress, the toys you want to play with, the way you carry yourself. Your interests as a human being are all shaped by these things. So, we're talking about sexual identity, but Ashley gave us a chance to put the emphasis on the identity part as opposed to the sex part. She's 12 in the show. We're not interested in going to she doesn't have a sex life. But she does have a sexual identity, and we wanted to explore that. The other small pet peeve I have, and this is just the compression of most television, someone figures out that begins to suspect they're gay in the first act, and they've told everybody by the end of the episode, and everybody's good with it. And that bothered me on 2 counts. One is that I think it normally takes much longer for most people to come to terms with it within themselves, let alone tell the people around them. Also, and I get that, I think the instinct is kind, or the instinct was nice to say, well, why don't we have people come out? And it turns out everybody's fine with it. That, unfortunately, is not the reality for a great number of us, especially LGBTQ people of color. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily going to be everybody throwing their arms around you. And there became something in pop culture where gay people were afraid that they would be rejected. They came out and they were all accepted. It sort of turned homophobia into a figment of our imagination. And it is not a figment of our imagination. And so with this story, we thought we can take our time and do this in a way that more closely resembles reality. She's right now, I think, in the questioning stage. What we love about that cue is wherever you might ultimately find your identity, almost all of us start in that Q stage. At one point or another, we're all questioning. And it's the only sort of letter there that we all share. And so it was great, we thought, to put her there. So I'm, of course, very passionate about this story. We're, of course, going to continue telling it, and not to sound too sensitive about it, but you see online. I mean, we anticipated there'd be some blowback. You see online some people are like, "Oh, I'm so sick of the gay agenda." There's no agenda to recognizing that a group of people exists.
Right.
This is the reality of the world, and we have a right to it. So we make no apologies for this storyline.
I love that storyline for Ashley, and I'm really interested in seeing where it goes in future seasons. I want to say I loved that scene between her and Hilary, and just in general, I feel like, this is what I remember. I actually wrote this down when I was watching the first episode. I don't remember the original Ashley and Carlton and Hilary. They were siblings; they loved each other. But from the first episode, we got a sense of, I don't know if the original did a great job of showing that they actually liked each other, but this one did an excellent job of showing that they don't always get along, but they're close siblings who actually love each other. So I say that to say I love that scene between Ashley and Hilary, where Ashley starts to tell Hilary about her feelings and things like that, because Hilary is just a supportive big sister. So I just want to pay y'all that compliment. I really
thank you. No, and by the way, part of it kind of stemmed from thinking Hilary. I mean, we just thought, of course, Hilary's had gay friends. And had gay friends over to the house, and she's living in Los Angeles, and she's of the world. I mean, so if you're Ashley and you're trying to think, who can I go to? She would seem, beyond being just a loving big sister, someone you go, oh, you will know the world,
Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about your. So I was going to move on to your book, but one more thing. Uh-huh. Will and Lisa, I am rooting for them so hard. What can we moving forward with that relationship?
I think they've been through a lot, and they continue. And you almost, I think, there'd be this feeling of maybe this is too much. Maybe it's not supposed to be this hard. Maybe we're not supposed to be together. But the attraction won't go away. I think Carlton has let go, but we would like to, I think, create a new love triangle with Will and Lisa. Introduce someone else on the board just to complicate it.
Right. True love has to, it has to go on a journey. It's a journey. So they can't, even though I want them to live happily ever after at the age of 17, it's is that really realistic? They have to, it's a journey. Okay, I'll accept that answer. With Carlton, though, I want to ask, will we see more of him exploring his Black identity? I feel like it was kind of hinted at this.
Yeah, I think we want to get into that. And then the trick of it is, though, Carlton still has to be Carlton. Mm-hmm. And his experiences and his opinions should still get everyone a little riled up. Not that we're going to play this point, but this is just an example we were talking about the other day. I mean, if someone were to, if Black dad were to spank his toddler or young kid in front of Carlton would be like, why do you do that? When all the studies show that just really is horrible for their emotional development. And you just sort of want people to go, I'm sorry, what now? You just want him to just be not just slaying sacred cows left, right, and center. I mean, just you want Carlton to be like, I thought Whitney Houston was overrated, and just watch everybody's head explode. He's got to do that. He's got to do that.
We love Carlton, though. We love him, though. But you're right. He has to do that. And I'm sorry, kind of jumping back to something you said earlier, how Will and Carlton have bonded. I've heard some people say that they thought that happened too quickly. But I wanted to ask you, like, going forward, will we see conflict between them? Maybe that isn't as serious, but I mean, they're cousins.
But they come from different worlds and can't help being who they are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so that should be the point of the frustration. That I mean, if Will is even if Will's like, hey, I'm bringing you to this party, if Carlton goes off and pisses everybody off at the party with his opinions, Will's got to feel like, I can't, dude. Like, you make me look bad. Like, what is wrong with you? And that question should really irk Carlton. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I just happen to disagree with the majority opinion. But so I know there will absolutely be conflict.
Okay, great. Because I've been telling people, I'm like, they're brothers. Of course they're gonna clash.
And that's like, neither one of them have had a brother.
Mm-hmm. That's a good.
That is not an easy relationship to suddenly jump into. To who's going to defer to who, and so I think that is, that's going to be ripe for conflict.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we're excited over here at Geek Vibes Nation for season 2. We're going to be looking forward to it. But I want to talk to you about your book, My Government Means to Kill Me. How has that been? What was that like for you to make that transition from screenwriting, television writing and things like that, to writing a novel? And also, you've been with your writing partner for so long. What was it like to suddenly be writing on your own?
Well, it was a sort of story where I felt like it was best as a book, as mm-hmm. opposed to something that TJ and I would do together as a screenplay or something. And that story just wouldn't leave me alone. I've been thinking about that story for years and years and years. I'm a gay Black man. I have always sort of wondered what would I have been like during the Civil Rights Movement? What would I have been like during the AIDS crisis and the heat of it in the mid 80s into the 90s? And those two questions have always sort of been something that you wonder about yourself. I've grown up in a world where, I was able to know some of the people who went through the Civil Rights Movement, some of the people who survived the AIDS crisis. There have been countless books and documentaries. When I started to write that novel, I thought, not to sound too precious about it, but when I started writing My Government Means to Kill Me, I thought, well, I was born to write this. I've been preparing for this. I've been studying for this my entire life. So it felt really natural. That always kind of encouraged me to keep going. I wasn't so sure who would be interested in the book. My husband had more confidence on that score than I did. I really thought this is so aggressively homosexual. I'm not sure people are ready for this. But I think people, they like the coming of age. They like the political part of it. They like the activism. It turns out there's a lot more there than I had maybe given it credit for in the beginning.
Great. So we are looking forward to that. Again, that'll be out from Flatiron Books in August. And finally, lastly, I want to ask you, what is your advice for Black creatives and queer creatives who are wanting to break into screenwriting and producing and have the goal to ultimately be showrunners or to write novels? What advice would you give them?
Two things strike me. One is rather practical, which is don't chase trends. I think it's very tempting if Get Out happens or Atlanta happens, or I suppose now BelAir happens. People will try to do something that mimics those shows. Better, you should write something that only you feel you could write. You're the only one who really owns that territory or knows that that story. The other thing is I like show business a lot. I'm out here, I had a lot of jobs as an assistant and coming up the ranks. I loved the entire ride. I think a lot of people come here and they kind of, you know, to become the boss is the goal, but that's going to take a while, and you probably should be learning things and enjoying it along the way. I really did enjoy it along the way.
Awesome. Well, Rasheed, thank you so much for speaking to us. We are looking forward to your novel. We are looking forward to BelAir season 2. And guys, please check back on the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel for more awesome interviews. Rasheed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.